checked on my credentials for they asked what your name is. Counted fingers, counted toes, said I cannot place your nose. Then against my better judgment, we stepped out into the cold, and now I do my best to practice what I preach, so you don't have to learn things on the street like I did back when I was half my age, long before I knew the price I have to pay. My father told me sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. As many called, but few are chosen. Nothing worth a damn is free. Don't you take no wooden nickels. In fact, all get paid in change. Remember who you are, no matter what road that you take. And I will do my best to practice what I preach, so you don't have to learn things on the street like I did back when I was half my age, long before I knew the price I have to pay. If you can avoid it, don't you get by on your looks. And when you're searching for an answer, figure someone wrote the book. And no matter what, don't be afraid to say when you are wrong. Remember, it don't make you weak to know that you aren't always strong. And I will do my best to practice what I preach, so you don't have to learn things on the street like I did back when I was half my age, long before I knew the price I have to pay, long before I knew the price I have to pay.
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
that's right, guys. We're back for another fun-filled week here on the Red Moon Podcast.
That's we are.
We are social distancing, as you can see,
As best we can.
as best as we can.
I
I mean,
distanced myself socially last week.
you did. Are you feeling much better? Your allergies are gone. That was
Yeah.
the reason. Well, we got to tell people why
No,
you were
allergies
social distancing.
are well,
Otherwise, people will be like, you need to be in quarantine.
I am in quarantine with you all. We're
That's a-
quarantined together.
I mean, that's the thing. If we end up held up, because of the COVID,
I had the.
It's gonna be
ickies.
the longest
I had,
show
I had
ever.
the icky sickies.
icky
The
stickies.
Not icky stickies. Where are you going? Whoa.
I don't know.
Said the icky sickies. No, I had the sniffles and the snuffles and the crud, basically.
The
I had
crud.
congested lungs and snotty
That
sinuses.
sounds
and,
like Corona.
Yeah. No,
No.
no. The corona doesn't congest.
I think it's going to get to a point where we all start to just, parse out. Well, that sounds like, but I didn't have a fever,
That's right.
so
Right.
I'm okay.
I,
you
my
know?
fever.
have
I
to
never
have
had a
all of
fever
the above.
of over 100. I had the tummy rumblings. Well, they have said now
You
that
had
symptoms
had
are showing that
butt mud, dude.
that nausea. Well, they have. Said, it wasn't originally. Well, now they're saying symptoms are all over the place. They said they don't know anymore because people are showcasing so many different symptoms.
Pink eye is
Right.
one of them
Because
now.
Yeah,
yep,
I don't
Sean,
know,
Sean got
Sean.
it.
Yeah.
It's
You
like,
can't see it, but my kids gave me pink eye.
and then we were worried. But
Basically-
you assured us
No.
it's
Yeah.
not anything in connection or conjunction with the COVID.
No.
COVID.
It's not.
I don't have any other symptoms, and I'm not contagious because I've been on my medicine
We've
for a couple
pretty
of
much
days.
just
Gotcha.
spread it amongst each other already anyway.
Now, if I put
so-
my finger in my eye and then stick it in your mouth,
Ooh, let's try.
you'll probably get something.
I don't
betting
think
he will
I'll
get
get anything.
something.
I bet you get something.
Don't yell.
From sticking your finger in my
I
mouth.
can't. I can't. You got glasses on. I can't.
You
put it in
better
your
watch
eye.
out. Bashir's gonna stop this.
Andy,
he's
we're
gonna
making
cut in.
Andy's disappointed.
Andy's
right
gonna
now.
be mad. He's
It's
not
gonna be a
happy
meme.
about what we're doing.
It's gonna be a meme.
He's gonna bust in the middle of our show. And
He's
cut
gonna
it.
come in with a tape measure and be like, "Not 6 feet."
This is not
No.
6 feet.
Yeah. First of all, yardsticks don't go 6 feet. So.
It's a tape measure.
Oh.
Yeah.
He got you there.
Okay, he got me there.
Hey, we're doing our best though. We're okay. We're doing all right now.
Yeah.
We're
We aight.
we're all staying, in as much as we can. We're only going to places when we
I'm
need
staying
to.
in as much as I want. No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
other than being here, I really have been held up in my house. So
I mean, same here.
you
We
know.
discussed last week on our Vices segment. It's kind of like we've all been mainly just going to work, home, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then out on the occasional, the run to the grocery or something. So, but for the most
gotta
part,
hunt down that duty paper.
yeah,
It's
well,
hard.
it's still hard to find.
It's hard.
It's
I found some at Big
ridiculous.
Lots the other day. It was
I
great.
thought by now it would have stopped. Like I thought the hoarding of the toilet paper would have
Yeah.
stopped. But it's
People
I'm
are
surprised
scared,
Big
man.
Lots is even open. Like I thought.
They're essential. They sell groceries and they
That's-
sell. I mean, cleaning supplies.
I never thought I
so
would have heard that.
Yeah.
Big Lots was essential.
It's no different. I mean, because they say it's
neither did their employees.
it's like a yeah, right. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a dollar store or a Walmart or anything else. They sell so many different
I
items.
know. There's
so-
grocery stores and then there's general stores.
Well,
and
general
that's-
stores are considered
I guess.
essential. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be whoever has the TP.
Yeah.
I mean, once you have it, it's like you're going
You're
to be
essential.
essential.
that's why
Absolutely.
Staples
All
and
the
Home.
TP.
That's why like
I want it work.
Office Depot still open. You can buy toilet paper there.
Well, and you also need to be able to fix things. So I
Yeah.
understand why they can,
Yeah.
Yeah.
mechanical and construction
Lowe's was
places.
like packed
and-
the other day
Yeah.
in Bardstown. That's like usually there's no one there.
Yeah. See, that's what's going to be unnerving is when they start closing down those places because they don't practice
'cause
social
people won't-
distancing.
yeah.
And people don't,
It's like every Kroger's here in Louisville is constantly packed. I'm
we
like,
all
good
know,
Lord.
Yeah.
we all know what it was like back in kindergarten. It was like, one person ruins it for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we've got these
That's
days.
what it's going to be.
Yep.
People
All right.
won't listen. They go to coronavirus parties. I mean,
But we got a great show for everybody this week. We got our wonderful review. Yeah, that's right. What are we reviewing? Because there's nothing out. Everything is on demand. Everything's
I mean,
streaming.
there's
Nothing's in
nothing-
theaters.
There's nothing in theaters because theaters are closed.
Right.
But that doesn't mean movies don't exist or stop being released.
True.
They're still getting some.
Yeah.
I'm happy about the coronavirus because we have gotten so many good like movies
Soundbite.
that have been like released and there's more
Direct.
coming. Like
Well,
we're hearing rumors of more and more movies that are coming. I'm
Yeah.
like, bring it on.
Well, rumors are suggesting
Some
that
pretty big
Disney
ones.
is it's still in talks, not confirmed. That Mulan and Black Widow could very well be released on Disney+.
And I would say those would be the biggest
That'd be
movies for this to
huge.
happen.
Yeah.
So, especially Marvel. Yeah, massive.
And we got a little. We're going to probably talking about it a little bit later in the show
Mm-hmm.
with our topic of the week in terms of our theaters. Obviously, are not going to be happy with that. They're going to be upset. If a lot of studios, major studios, decide to go the streaming route, especially with their
I
bigger
mean, what are you
releases.
going to do?
yeah.
But at the end, yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to make a buck. You know, so we'll see. But I think this one came out,
This
a
one
few weeks
actually-
ago.
It got a theatrical release.
We weren't gonna review it,
But it only.
I mean, to be honest with you,
I mean,
Yeah.
it got a theatrical release, but I mean, it kind of fell short in its opening weekend. And then again, I mean, there's nothing else out though. I mean, there's still
Right.
it got that that video on demand release alongside so many other movies because I mean, it's
Then
the
it
only
was-
way it's going to be its money back at this point.
Then
anyway.
it was torrented and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we didn't. That's not what we did.
no,
Never. We get
no.
screeners.
We
We,
got the
don't, we,
screener.
we get screeners.
We are
Studios
loved.
like us directly. That's right. We are essential.
We
okay?
are essential.
We're
Yes.
essential for everybody out there who's
No one knows what,
surviving
no one
their
knows what to
quarantine.
watch without us.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. We're here to help them. So, do we have a review that will warrant people in quarantine watching this week?
We only got nothing better to do.
That's a little bit of a tease, but I guess we could maybe go ahead and toss to our review this week. Here is our review of The Way Back.
Here we are, still at home, still social distancing. As we continue to keep our heads down and dredge on through, sometimes it's hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. Things are so crazy right now, you can't help but not be able to see a way back to how things used to be. There is always hope, though, and as we turn to all the new movie releases to pass the time, one such film offers us a bit of that hope and the promise of a way back. The Way Back, starring Ben Affleck and written by Brad Inglesby and directed by Gavin O'Connor, tells the story of Jack Cunningham. Jack is a construction worker who is recently separated from his wife due to a recent tragedy, which led Jack to take up drinking. Jack has become an alcoholic as he watches his life fall apart around him. When Jack receives a phone call from Father Devine at Bishop Hayes Catholic High School, where Jack was once an all-star basketball player, Jack receives a second chance and takes up the head coaching position at the school. The Way Back is supposed to be an underdog story of redemption, but is very hit or miss. Jack's personal life and story are the only thing truly going for the film. Ben Affleck is a man who's hit rock bottom, struggling to fight his way to the top as he overcomes addiction and deals with his family falling apart, is convincing as he gives a solid and emotional performance. Part of Affleck's reasoning for even doing the film is because of how closely it relates to his own personal life with his recent battle with alcoholism and his recent divorce. The film may well have been a cathartic experience for Affleck, and it does show in his performance, which does pull at the heartstrings, but it isn't enough of the main focus to overcome the rest of the film. Where the film falters is in its depiction of Affleck as Jack the basketball coach. The Way Back is not based on a true story, and as such could have used any story or narrative to convey Jack's struggle with alcoholism and the family tragedy he suffered. Instead, Rydell Inglesby chose to use basketball as the medium through which Jack healed, learning life lessons himself by helping and imparting life lessons upon the players he's coaching. This could be a nice sentiment, except it's all very cliche and stereotypical. We've seen the drunken coach fighting his demons to lead on his team in Hoosiers. We've seen Coach Carter take a losing underprivileged team and inspire them to not just be great basketball players, but great men. What The Way Back does have is heart and a solid lead, but so do countless other films. Yes, it's nice to see Affleck back on top, and the parallel between this story and his does open more empathy for both the actor and the character. This alone, however, isn't enough to push The Way Back above so many other notable, inspiring films. It simply lacks the same conviction and raw emotion showcased around Jack throughout the rest of the movie, making for an interesting watch, but one that feels hollow in the end. I give The Way Back 2.5 out of 4 stars. Well, there you have it.
2.5 out of 4 stars.
2.5
That's right.
out of 4 stars. Because that's how we rate films here at Red Moon.
That is true.
Right. You should write about that.
Wow, Keith. Didn't you write about that?
I wrote an article in defense of the 4-star scale.
That's right. And we will have that up on the website this week.
I teased it the last time I was on. I wasn't here last week because
Tis done.
The tummy rumblings. But the article is finished, and it will be up on the website soon.
Very shortly.
Awesome.
Definitely, I would say by tomorrow evening.
Okay.
We'll
We'll look for that then.
Just gotta,
Have to trust Brandon now.
work out. Hey, look,
My part's over now. It's on Brandon.
so if it doesn't post, it's definitely on me. It's not gonna take nearly as long to get that up as our website did. But I will say, definitely a what I'm looking forward to on our website is more chances to explain
We will
how we
have-
view things in the film industry and why we represent, the views that we
why
have.
we score out of 4, and there will be continuing articles each month coming. So look for this was March's, even though we're now at the end of March. So look for April's soon. We'll have more information on that later.
But
on
now let's
another
talk
week.
about
But yeah.
The Way Back. 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Ooh.
So obviously,
I didn't think it was a bad movie.
I didn't
I mean,
either.
2.5,
Nope.
Isn't the best score, but at the same time, I was entertained by it. I just felt it was very stereotypical and cliched with the basketball aspect.
Yes.
I loved his story about his divorce and his alcoholism and all of that. I thought that was very compelling.
Agreed.
And I wish if they had done more with that and even told a different story using something other than tired basketball coach helps make these men, these boys into men and be good men. It was just very.
Well,
there wasn't any substance in that part of the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really where I found it tiresome, was because when you have other movies, as you mentioned in your review, Hoosiers,
Coach
Yeah.
Carter.
Coach Carter,
Both of those.
Remember
I felt,
the Titans.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you have movies that have come, in so much as they come a long way from this movie, and they've already been out for years, and they do such a better job at telling that story.
Yeah.
And being a better. I mean, it really is, I think, kind of problematic in almost the way The Banker was last week, the film that we reviewed, in such that there were so many story elements that I felt
You've
like
seen in other movies.
you've seen in other movies, but they also couldn't really decide on what to focus on. I mean, you couldn't jeopardize the emotional turmoil of him, his dissolving marriage, and the attitude that he had towards these kids. It's like they're both heavy concepts.
Yeah.
And while I understand that they were trying to focus on him as the centerpiece, I really felt like, again, like you were saying in your review, the basketball element was just kind of a back seat.
Yeah.
And
I was
didn't
going to
think
say, at least The Banker was based on a true story, so it's
Yeah.
like it might have faults, but you could at least say, well, at least that's how the story happened. They had to tell it in that way in general. But as this, it wasn't based on a true story. He could have used any story to tell, this character's like plight of like his life falling apart, his descent into alcoholism. They chose to make it about him coaching basketball as how he finds the way back, so to say.
Yeah.
But it's not, that part of it is just not compelling. So I just wish we've seen, like I've said so many times, like I said, the coach comes in and to impart wisdom on these boys and make them better and learn something himself. We've seen, that one player who's arrogant and doesn't respect the coach and
Yep.
has to get kicked off the team, but he has
in
a
order to
redemption.
learn a lesson.
Yeah,
But of course, he's going to come back.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've seen,
Exactly.
the family members who doesn't want the coach to inspire, feel false hope in the player, but then the family's at the
Yes.
game at the
Yep.
end of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like it had all of those elements.
It was very
that-
cliche.
Yeah.
Very
But
cliche.
I didn't even understand the whole. I didn't even understand how the priest came about to him as far as like wanting him to coach the basketball team. I felt like that came on very early on in the movie without any backstory as to why this guy's an alcoholic or what he's been through, what has led him down that road. But then you have the priest that just calls him, and he doesn't know him that well, and he calls him out of nowhere. And it's like, you think that the priest would have, checked into this guy a little bit and found out that he's at a bar every night instead of just, saying, hey, we'd like you to come coach a basketball team. Never mind, you might be a pedophile. We don't know. I mean, it's like they didn't do any background look into this guy at all before they were just like, oh, no, he was
Right.
our former star player 25 years ago.
Right.
So let's bring him back to coach a basketball team.
The only thing I can think that they were thinking there was that, in a way, they were almost. It was like they were trying to. The church was trying to give him a handout.
Yes.
That he was so well known in the community.
That's what I took it as. Is they
They
were
took
trying
it
to
as they
give
were
him this
trying to give him-
opportunity for him to
Yeah.
redeem
but they had to
himself.
have known that he was a loose cannon. I mean, they had to have known something
Yes.
about him.
Well, I think too, to the degree that you had those elements where, for instance, the assistant basketball coach,
Yeah,
he tries to say, "Hey, don't let it happen again." I
Yeah.
saw some beer cans in the
Right.
office, and and of course he kind of acts defensive about that, Ben Affleck's character, but it is like they're giving him a chance.
Yeah, I
but at the
understood
same
that,
time,
but
I agree with you in the sense that I think that ultimately it's like I wish the church would have found a different way in helping him. I mean, I guess the easiest thing to think is intramural basketball or collegiate basketball, where it's like, okay, you have this is the one thing that Catholic churches have, and that was I guess the one way they wanted to appeal was that the church would be willing to approach him. And even give
it
him
would have been a bit
handout.
more believable to me if they would have if it would have shown him falling off the wagon or getting back on the wagon, and then the church approaching him and saying, "Oh, here's a changed guy. He's got his life back together." And then something happens. Obviously, there's things happen because of his family and things like that he falls off and then loses.
See, I'm thinking if they use the access of while his kid was in the hospital, if you show flashbacks of him going to the priest and the priest being an influential part of
knowing
his
something
life.
about it. Yeah,
Exactly.
We
and
don't
know-
even have the notion
don't.
that the priest knows about his son.
Right.
So that bothered me. But then I'm having a hard time really understanding what wisdom he instilled on the kids. all he did was yell and cuss at him.
True.
But he did teach him the fundamentals of basketball. But I'm like, but really, all he does is yell and scream and cuss and look disappointed unless they
he
win.
never cleans up his act.
No, he never
entire
does.
taught them
time,
to
he
come
never-
together as a team, but it's not very. You're right. It's not showcased very well how he actually does that.
At the end of the movie, it's kind of like you're led to
Yes.
believe that all of this
Yes.
wisdom was departed upon them.
Yes.
But I never really saw that happen.
They make the remark, well, you could tell that Jack Cunningham's stamps all over these kids and how they're playing.
Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
but
well,
it's
and
like,
again, I think that's because you have so much of the movie
They
that
told
took
you,
a
they
back
didn't show
seat.
you.
They
Yeah.
told you,
Yeah.
they didn't show you. I did like the trope of that they used of showing some of them going into the games, especially the first games that they lose. And instead of showing you a good 5-minute scene of back and forth basketball, he's like, all right, let's get out there and play your asses off. And then,
And
it
then it
cuts
shows the
and it just
score.
shows the score.
Score.
And
Yeah.
they lost.
Yes.
And I actually thought that was
No,
a
that was
creative
good.
way
Yeah.
of saying, okay, we're not going to be like a traditional film you've seen before and
we
show
don't
you
have
all
to
these
show
games.
you sucking for like 20 minutes.
Right. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you do have to show that escalation
You have to show them
of
getting better.
not only getting better,
Yeah.
but making certain pivotal games the key moments. And I think they tried that, but it still fell too short. For
Yeah.
instance, the main game that I'm thinking of was the playoff game them to get into the playoffs.
get it, yeah.
Yeah.
And
of course, you have the cliche opposing team that has a jerk of a coach.
exactly.
that, you
This
know,
is the
yeah.
best team in the
Yeah.
league, and they're a bunch of a-holes.
Yeah, and-
but go ahead.
No, but
you just
I
have to point that out too.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things where it was like they get to the end of that game and it's this inspirational win, and it's like, yeah, but this is like the fourth game that I've seen, and
And it
even
wasn't
though
that
you showed,
inspirational.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, it wasn't that inspirational, and I'm sitting here thinking, what is the focal point of the story? Is it them winning basketball games, or is it him overcoming something in his life? And I think there could have been a way that this story could have been creatively told, that it could have been well done,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I felt like it fell too short and it didn't know which one it wanted to be.
And
And
I
that was the
mean,
problem, that it really
We're knocking it pretty
suffered.
good here, but there are good parts. Like I say, I mean, we gave it 2.5. Like, it's not all bad. I mean, we're
I'm
knocking
actually-
the basketball
after
stuff.
we're talking about it, I'm actually dropping my score.
For-
It's a
yeah,
2.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not all bad. Like I said, the stuff around him and his ex-wife and what happened that caused the divorce and led him to drinking and becoming an alcoholic. Those are actually some good moments. And there's parts with his acting, like when
he carries
he does
a lot of the film.
Yes,
and,
he does.
and he does
Absolutely,
he does a
he
good
does.
job. And there's parts that had my eyes watering
Yes.
when it goes into him with his wife, or what happened with his son,
Yes.
or even when at the end of the film when he's finally confronted for showing up drunk and he's like, please don't do this, and he's begging.
Yeah.
Just that scene alone, I was like, man, it got me. But it's like at the same time, it didn't get me as hard as it could, because I was like, well, I don't feel like you were really that integral to the basketball team. As your acting's great. I mean, I see the anguish in your face for what, what's happening right now, but at the same time, his character wasn't so integral that I felt like it could have invoked more emotion than what it did.
Yeah.
Is what I had it feel.
Well, and again, I think it goes back to this that angle of, if it wouldn't have had the disjointed structure of, at one moment he's on his high success rate of the basketball team, and you see this little montage of, oh, he's planning plays at work and he's getting back into. But even that, we were talking about, I think we were talking about on a segment that we recorded for Great Day Live. Oh no, it's coming later this week. But we were talking about how on there, one of the focal points could have been that it could have just been that struggle of him being on a construction site at work and just getting back into the swing of things, and him possibly losing his job.
Just him rebuilding his life.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I felt like I understand what they were trying to say with. I get all of the points they were trying to hit in the film. They just didn't hit them. And to me, I'm sorry, but just because a lot of the reason why Ben Affleck took on this role was because it kind of hit a lot of notes of his own personal life.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Struggle
just
with
not enough
alcoholism
to
and-
justify this movie for me
It's
and what it
admirable.
represents.
It does make me empathetic towards him. Like, it is admirable, but at the same time, it's not enough to make this movie stand the test of time when there's other movies that hit
Do
you
it so
harder.
much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, I mean, it's great that he was able to channel that and have this cathartic experience, but should we give the movie a pass just because of that? No.
Yeah.
Well, and even from the integral parts of, from the moment he meets the kids and he starts teaching them, like from right there, I thought it was a decent scene. but it sets it up as if you're going to get to know each one of these kids in and out, like you do in Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
But then at that point, it takes a back seat.
Yep.
You have like 2 kids on the team, maybe 3. But again, they're stereotypes. They're not actually fully fleshed out kids. Got one kid making out with 3 different girls.
Yep.
And he's the player, and
you got the bad
smooth
boy.
talker. You got the bad boy who misses practice, comes in late, and he's rough around the edges.
Right.
You got the quiet one who just wants to get through, but he's really the stellar player. It's just all these stereotypes start to play out, and they want that to hold up, his narrative and the influence he has on them. And there is the one quiet scene that between him and the star player, the point guard, that they have in his truck on the way to.
That was actually
and
pretty
that
good.
was good. That was one character building scene that I was like, okay, I could get behind this.
When he discusses like why he didn't take the scholarship and with his father. Yeah.
But for the most part, other than just that one scene, the rest of it was just kind of hogwash. It was like you didn't need it.
Yeah,
I
will say the end of it was my favorite part of the movie, not because it was over, but because at the end of the film you have the only stereotype that's not. That's when they break the stereotype, because the stereotype for this kind of movie is obvious. The coach comes back and gets to continue.
Yes.
They overcome.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of this movie, not trying to spoil it, but you make choices and you have to live with the consequences.
Yeah.
And one of the consequences for him is he doesn't get to be the coach.
Yeah.
And it's even though the team goes on and plays their hearts out, he's not there.
Yeah.
And it's because of his actions and because of the decisions he's
Agreed.
made. And I think that's very realistic to finally show a movie like this with the sports team and all of this struggle, to have him, he doesn't get to come back and be the coach. And that's life. That's what would really happen if this guy did and what he did and went off the rails the way he's done. And it doesn't mean that his redemption story is non-existent. Of course, he's in rehab and he's doing these things.
Yeah.
He's trying to find his way back, but the team is finding their way forward without him. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Again,
That's
though,
reality.
they also kind of shoved his redemption till the very. It's like they focused what should have been a story about him. They focused on where the basketball team was going, and then finally in the last 20 minutes, they're like, okay, now he's going to hit his lowest point and then hit that redemption.
And they do it really
and
fast.
And it was very right.
Yeah,
and
that
it's
was the
like,
only issue.
That could have been so much better if you got to really be with him during his low point, and then see him rise back up and learn a lesson from everything that had happened. But they kind of just wrap it up like, oh well, now he's hit this part and he's going to get better. Yeah, and it's like that's nice, but
it's like
I want
happily ever after. Like I didn't get anything else. The most compelling part of that was when he has to
confront his wife.
Part of it is admitting what you've done wrong and asking someone for forgiveness.
Yes.
And
when he has the moment with his wife,
that was good.
And that's the thing. I don't like. It's very odd because I know when we get around award season, I'm often like, no, you can't judge this performance based on past performances. I know that when it comes to movies like this, I'm sorry, we're judging it on the fact that it seems like a lot of other movies we've seen before. But the other thing, too, is that I also don't like the fact that a lot of this movie did lean heavily on what Ben Affleck had been through in his personal life. However, that was one scene of the movie where he's having the conversation with his wife or his ex-wife. It's like I could tell a lot of that was coming from his experiences in real life.
Oh yeah,
and that was a moment where I was like, that was the best scene in the film for me. But again, I think everything that it took to lead up to that, again, yes, it was rushed, and it just, again, not a terrible movie, but not stellar. Obviously, if you're stuck at home during quarantine, it was. Well, I would say rent it. But here's the problem: is I tried to even rent it when I was having problems with Plex.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of pissed. They only gave me a buy option.
Really?
And I'm not buying
Well,
this.
it's the same price either way. If you're going to pay $20 to rent it, you might as well pay $20 and own it.
True, but in all, what movie has Ben Affleck done recently where he's actually given a pretty good performance beyond this movie?
I would say, I mean, this wasn't the best
Batman
movie,
v
but
Superman.
it was. It was a nice step in the right direction for Ben Affleck after seeing what he's done. It's one of those things where Ben Affleck can be very hit or miss. Like, he can be good or he can be terrible.
Yeah.
And I've always preferred him as a director. And I'd really like to see him direct something new because it's been a while since he's what was the last thing? Was Argo?
Argo.
Yeah.
Argo.
Argo.
I don't know where that came from.
Talk about a movie to watch during quarantine.
Argo. But I would actually like to see him get back into directing and see what he has to offer there because, I mean, Argo, won an Academy Award.
Well, the last one that we reviewed from Netflix that had him in it was piss poor. What was that movie?
Gosh. No,
we already
it wouldn't-
forgot it.
We did.
But he was only in it for like 5 minutes.
Oh, it's not the one with oh gosh, Anne Hathaway. That's how terrible. it
Yeah.
is.
Yes, where
The-
she was the reporter.
The thing he hated or left
oh yeah,
behind.
the
or
last thing he
The
ever
last
last
thing
thing
he
he
ever
ever
wanted.
wanted.
Yeah, it was the
No,
last
or was
thing.
it the last thing he wanted or the last thing
That's
she
why
wanted?
we-
No, it was the last thing because it was about this was the last thing because he says that it's like it's,
It's
the last thing I ever wanted.
Yeah.
because he says
well,
the line.
it's
at the end of
honestly the
movie.
last thing any of us
Yeah.
wanted.
to
So
see.
yeah, we don't want.
Honestly, Triple Frontier was probably the last movie.
That's-
that,
yeah.
good movie that I think
He did
was
good in that, yeah.
yeah.
But obviously, yes, check it out if you have the ability and the expendable
it's
income.
worth a
Don't
watch.
buy it.
Don't spend
No,
any of your
no.
stimulus check on this movie. Okay, there's better things.
It's worth seeing, and it does have some emotional pulls. I think it'll pull on certain like people's heartstrings, but it's just at the end, it's not as gratifying as you wish it would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that is it. 2.5 out of 4 stars for The Way Back.
The Way
There's
Back.
a much better movie called The Way Back.
The way back.
Rent that
That
one.
Brandon keeps.
Yeah.
He
I
keeps
keep wanting to say, it.
Yeah.
but definitely go
a
see
much
that
better
one.
movie.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for our talk of The Way Back. Let's move on to our headline this week, which we've got an interesting one out there.
That we do.
Obviously, still continuing with all of our corona talk. Coronavirus is still strong. Everything's shut down. In the middle of the pandemic, we've got a lot of studio execs, Disney leading the charge, helping their employees with the coronavirus.
Leading the charge as far as production companies go.
For production companies. Now, they're not the first to do this.
No.
A lot of their top execs, some EPs, executive producers, and senior vice presidents.
Their new
Vice
CEO has
presidents, their new
stated
CEO.
he's taking a reduced salary. Bob Iger, who is now the lead,
taking zero.
yeah, the lead. He's the head of the board now. Is taking a 100%, like nothing. He's zero.
I think what it was, Bob Iger is giving back all of his salary.
Yeah, he's not going to accept any of his salary. He's going to give it all to pay employees.
The new
Yeah.
CEO is taking a 50% reduction.
Yeah.
And then the senior executives and vice presidents,
I already
all
know-
of
I already
those are
know.
giving about
20%.
25 or 30%.
That just tells me Bob
Yeah.
Iger, as previous CEO, is still up here. This new guy.
I know.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You need the money? Huh. Say that to your employees who help get you where you are, okay? Come on. No, the big question here, Sean, you kind of alluded to it in a group text that we were going back and forth this week.
When we were first discussing the news, yeah.
This kind of seems like they're jumping on the bandwagon of a lot of other
Well,
companies.
Yeah,
It
and
can be.
I wasn't trying to really throw shade on Disney by saying that, but my point was it is a big deal because that's a lot of money, and it is helping a lot of people out. So I'm not doubting the good cause that they're doing, but there's a lot of other CEOs and a lot of other companies that have already
Smaller-
done this, and
smaller
smaller ones
companies.
that make a lot less money.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, Keith made a good point. This is like the first movie studio that's done this. I
And
know,
so far I haven't heard of any others. to
No,
do
I
it.
know David
Well, no, granted-
Blum or whatever.
Yes,
He's
yes,
doing
he
something
is.
something small, but again,
He's a smaller
Blumhouse is
production
not. That's a
company.
way smaller production. We're talking about a massive
Yeah.
production company.
I mean,
Well, no,
Disney.
no, think about this, though. We-
multi-billion-dollar
Yes,
company.
yes.
We talked about it last week, though, and Netflix is giving $100 million.
$100 million.
True,
To the-
but
so-
their CEOs aren't sacrificing anything
AMC
yet.
Theaters CEO is sacrificing
Yes.
all of his
All of
remaining
it, all of
salary
it.
for the year to do that, and but then you have other companies like Cinemark, where their CEO is taking
Firing.
a hit, but he's also cutting all of their employees' salaries by 50%.
Gosh,
And I'm
man.
like, that's crazy. Like, how are you gonna
And people
keep your
remember
employees?
that. People remember
Oh, yes.
which companies like AMC
Yes.
gave up their money and
That's
which
the
companies did their employees dirty.
Right.
Well, and I guess that's the bigger question about this is obviously.
Well, is it a
it's-
bandwagon thing at this point?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
And I mean, I think right now it's still a little early to say it's bandwagonish because companies only just started doing this about a week ago.
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong to question some intentions because it's like, come on now.
But
It's
here's the
once-
thing.
once
The
Even
everybody-
if their
first one to do it
intention-
is always the most admirable one.
Right.
And you're going to have a couple afterwards that are going to be like, oh, that's actually a good idea. And there may be some that were thinking of doing it but
Yeah.
just didn't get to it first.
Yeah.
But when you've got 2 or 3 weeks going by and you've got more and more companies doing that, then at some point you're kind of like, wondering if they're just saying, "Oh, well, other people look better than us, so we better do it too."
A month from now, if I hear like, "Oh, Paramount's CEO," it's like,
Yeah.
okay, where was he a month ago
A
when
month
everybody
ago,
else
right,
did it?
right. And you're right. It is still early.
But
that
here's
this
the thing.
is.
I mean, at the end of the day, if it goes forward and helps employees,
That's all that matters.
I was gonna say, do we really
Yeah.
care if they're jumping on the bandwagon, or is it just like, hey, we actually hope more? This kind of sets the tone and the pace for more people to be helped out.
I'm actually,
I mean,
I'm actually glad, whether it's a bandwagon issue or not, that Disney is one of the first production studios to do that, because when a company that huge does it, it does set a precedent for other companies to follow suit. And it is good for the employees. So it's nice that, okay, Bob Iger, someone who makes more money than most any other CEO for a company,
Yeah.
is doing this. So it's like, well, if Bob Iger can do it, come on, who else can?
Well,
Yeah.
And truth be told, I think they had kind of the obligation, because think about it. If you had any other studio that came out ahead of them,
Well,
to-
Disney
you know,
being the
Disney-
family and
well, not only Disney, Disney having that image of being the family.
Family.
The easily one of the largest, if not the largest production house in Hollywood, and yet you're going to sit here and tell me that they don't have the ability to foot the bill to help out their employees.
Yeah.
It's like, I think they wanted to get ahead of the game to not only set the precedent, but for fear that there would have been backlash had they not done it sooner.
Yeah.
I think, again, now that we're getting into the thick of the pandemic, and we're now hearing about the next 2 weeks, being a situation where you could see probably the worst of this pandemic hit in terms of the death toll. The peak of it might be in the next couple weeks here. It's like, I think a lot of people are starting to understand this is not going to be a short-term thing.
Yeah.
This is not something that's going to last just for another month and then theaters are opening. And so that's really the other question here is, they're doing a lot to help their employees, but we talked about this a little bit with the theaters and how, are they going to come back from the streaming services, possibly, making a dent in their sales. But, the theaters themselves have come out this week and said that they're happy because they're in the situation where because of the stimulus package, they think they'll be able to see through this.
Right now, they feel secure. They think that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel for theaters, that right now the stimulus package is going to provide them with the relief they need to make it through. But at the end of the day, I mean, at the end of all this, the theaters still have to have something to play to get people to come back. And with everything postponed, we don't know how that's going to come about as of yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
all your biggest movies of the year, though, are going to come out in June and July and beyond.
Yeah.
So if they can straighten things out before the summer, then
They're fine,
theaters might have, a chance at recouping some of the money, especially with all the big blockbusters coming out of the summer and closer to Christmas. Because what's the big one coming out in November or December this year?
Well, I know they pushed No Time to Die back to, I believe, November.
Okay. That was supposed to be in the summer, though, right?
Yes, it's
Actually,
April.
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 It's
Yeah,
supposed to
you're
be
right.
this
You're
month.
right.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be this month. The Eternals, I think, is sometime in the fall.
Okay.
Which is Marvel.
I thought Marvel had a big one coming out. In the fall.
Not
that
Black
would probably
Widow,
be the Eternals.
is it?
No, Black
No,
Widow
Black
was
Widow
supposed to be in
soon.
May.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The Eternals was going to be later on in the year. But there's so many that's been pushed back now.
Well,
It's
and
hard to keep
we
track.
don't know either if, once the theaters do open, a lot of these, I think, the studios have been playing a safe bet, pushing everything back a year to say, we don't know how long this is going to last.
Yeah.
We at least are not whetting your appetite. We're not getting your hopes up. We're going to push everything back a year.
Yeah.
And then if the theaters open up in the summer and everything kind of starts to die down and get better again, I think you're going to see some of those studios, maybe by chance, do the same thing with canceling their original premiere. They may move it back up.
Yeah.
And they may say, hey, to let you know,
Theaters are open. We're
theaters
gonna
are
release our
open.
movie.
We're going to release that and they may start vying for different windows where they know they're going to be uncontested, and they could make a huge sweep of people coming back to the theater.
With Disney, and like we talked about earlier in the podcast, we talked about them releasing Black Widow maybe and Mulan. Those are two movies. Like Black Widow, I'm sure it's probably going to be good.
Yeah.
But it's not an Avengers. And I don't think they ever really had any intention of it being this
That
huge
massive.
billion-dollar movie. And
But-
Mulan's definitely not going to be. It might be good, but it was never going to
Actually,
be.
I think Mulan has a chance only because of all the live action films they've had
so
before
many
it.
have
It
made
might.
hit
have
that
made
$1 billion mark.
hit that $1 billion
But
mark.
I think those movies, though, are the movies that someone like Disney and Marvel are more willing to just go ahead and get them out there than push them back till later. Like
Here's the only problem.
Ghostbusters
They know
is pushed
any
back till
Marvel
next year.
Yeah, they know
that
any
movie
Marvel
has to get a theater release, or it's not going to make. Yeah, it's dead.
Yeah, they know any Marvel movie is going to be big, but they also, like you said, know that Black Widow, while it's going to be big because it's Marvel, isn't going to be in-game.
No,
big.
but here's the problem, but I don't think they're expecting in-game.
No,
big.
they weren't.
The big thing
ever.
they're going to be facing is on the PC battlefront.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is this the first major Marvel film that is a woman main character.
Yeah, true.
And so at the end of the day,
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
think
Captain Marvel
was.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
Captain
true.
Marvel was.
So okay, then I guess they won't be facing.
They won't.
as
They won't.
much of a
They won't
backlash.
get that back. But I think you're right though, because the fact that Black Widow herself was the first major Marvel female hero, and she's finally getting her own movie. I do think people will be disappointed to see her not get that.
I just
theatrical
think that
release,
they're going to be
'cause
decrying the fact that
people
it's
already
like,
felt
okay,
she was shafted by not giving her
Yeah.
own movie until this point.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
it went
Until
so long
after she's dead.
Yeah. So like I say, people already feel like she got the shaft. So now it's like they're gonna feel that even more if that character doesn't get a theatrical release.
Yeah.
And even movie theaters right now are getting kind of huffy because it was one thing when movies premiered at the theater and then this happened and then a week later they were video on demand. But now we have Trolls 2 coming out that's going to get a strictly video on demand premiere. Where they're talking about Mulan and Black Widow maybe getting a strictly video on demand premiere or on Disney Plus. And theaters aren't liking that because you already have the contract with a 90-day theatrical window guaranteeing theaters that production studios will show their movie in theaters, and theaters are kind of getting huffy saying, well, if you're not going to premiere in theaters, then we're not going to do business with you anymore. But how far, I mean, there's only so far they could take that.
Well, and I think that's going to be the issue that ultimately, I think a lot of theaters are going to come out with firing power. I think a lot of theaters are hoping that they will have that onus on them to say, look, we're gonna hold this over your head, and this is gonna come back to bite you. The problem is it really comes down to what the customer wants.
Yeah.
If you try to bar any major studio from showing a movie that everybody, and they may not do that, they may be smart.
I think
and
it'll
they
come
may
back
just,
to bite the theaters worse than it's going to bite the production company.
I agree too.
Yeah.
But I still think that if they do it with shorter or they do it with smaller releases, it could hurt the studio in the longer run. If they don't do it to the big releases.
Yeah.
But then again, the studios could say, well, screw you. We'll just do everything on streaming, and then the theater will be out the big paycheck.
It's definitely a situation that
they're playing chicken right now.
We talked about it previously, but it's definitely a situation that could change how we view and premiere movies. I mean, we talked about, could this lead to production companies just going straight to video or doing what like Trolls originally had planned, airing in theaters and on demand at the same time.
And truthfully, that's kind of going back to our original topic at hand with Disney execs giving up, you know, and if they set and pave the way forward, I mean, we've already talked about Netflix giving up $100 million. If all of these studios who are losing production time because their productions had to stop, that's another question too, is, you know, if they're saving all this money to help their employees, good on them, but what happens when, I mean, I feel bad in the sense that at the end of the day, I'm happy that they're, you know, they're holding off their salaries. They're not getting their big paychecks.
They still have to make a profit.
But they got to make a profit. And at the end of the day, if they don't get a salary, but then they're still in the red because so much of their production has been halted that they don't have any big money makers for, you know, that all I'm saying is, are they taking some of these cuts on the front end to help stay
well, everybody thinks
the burning end of like, oh, yeah, we're not going to fire you now, but then if we don't have the money on the back end and we have to make some layoffs because, well, we haven't made a profit in a long
Everybody
time.
thinks, oh, they're billion-dollar companies, billion-dollar CEOs, they can afford to take a hit. And that's true in the short term, but in the long term, I mean, production costs, what it costs to pay all the employees and to make all these movies, it racks
about billions.
Yes, it's
of
billions, and it
dollars.
racks up. And if they spend all their money just trying to keep their employees afloat, then yes, in the future, either they're going to go bankrupt or they're going to have to start laying people off
Meaning,
to make up
I think
the
right
difference.
now what the executives are doing is the right call.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, even them cutting their salaries is only going to go so far.
yes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if we don't see in the next few months, you know, the coronavirus lifting and places of business opening back up, or especially productions getting back underway, it's going to hurt well after the pandemic is over.
Oh, yeah.
And once things, you know, because once things open back up, it's not like manufacturing and you just start the process again and then boom, you're back into production. It's also,
build all
you've
over
got to
again.
build
Yeah.
everything back up again, and it's still going to be months before people see it and actually go paid to
And you got
pay
to
a ticket price.
spend more money that you don't have just to try to
On
make
top
that
of
profit
that,
back.
there's the possibility of it coming back in the fall. So, I mean, the
Yeah.
CDC is saying there's going to be another wave of it when
Yeah.
it starts getting cold again. So I mean, the whole thing is just unprecedented. There's no routine. There's no program to figure all of this out. And I think what they're doing is good. And I think Disney and Apple are two companies that could probably sit idle for several months and still make money.
Yes.
But at a certain point, they've got to, they got to get back to it. And you can't.
And that's why I'm sitting here
no
saying,
one- no,
while I'm
contracts
expecting,
don't mean anything with all this coronavirus going on. That's what I'm saying. The contracts weren't designed for a situation like this. So they've got to make some exceptions.
I mean, nobody can operate in the red forever unless you're Netflix. So
they started in the red.
So I mean,
they're hoping that at the end of the day, it's like their debt collectors don't come calling. And it's like, well, Corona may be the time they need it. So who knows? We don't know if Netflix is going to be around next year. They act like it, and everybody's watching them, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're right. I think it comes down to it really just depends on how long this pandemic lasts and how long can they afford. Because while I expect Apple and Disney to be able to sit idle, that's all the more reason why there's some other companies who maybe are not in that position. Yeah. Your smaller production houses who don't have that opportunity.
That's why I felt like some of the other companies were a little more admirable for doing that. The airlines especially, almost every major airline CEO has forfeited their salary, and they're paying their employees and all of this stuff, and they're never going to recoup that money. I mean, airline business in itself is not a huge moneymaker anymore, and that is, so they're being hurt pretty bad, and for them to be giving up their money to try to help out their employees, I think that's a bigger deal than Disney doing it. But again, it's people are just doing what they got to do and trying to keep everything alive. They're trying to keep everything alive, and I think I kind of made it sound like I was bashing it in our text messages the other night, but I mean, you really do have to give them a hand for being willing to do that.
Yeah,
I can't say that I'd be willing to give up my salary to help somebody else out. So, I mean, no matter how much it was.
We're not in the position where we're making millions.
That's true. I'm just saying,
this is just
I'm buying toilet paper for me. I ain't buying anybody toilet paper. So
this is just my personal opinion, but I honestly feel that without Bob Iger at Disney, I wonder if they would have gone this route. I really do.
That's
true.
Saying a lot.
Yeah. Then we'll find out as the weeks continue with Corona. We're obviously still not. We're not out of it yet. We still got plenty more to come, plenty more news to see what happens in the film industry and how this affects it. So instead, we're going to turn to the gaming industry.
That's all we're doing, sitting at home playing video games.
Yeah, that's right. So another industry that took a hit, or will be maybe later this year, depending on how everything turns out.
Right now, they're saying everything's projected to still be on par.
With the new consoles.
They said the biggest risk is getting the materials they need to have enough to placate massive orders.
Yep.
They say it could be another one of those situations where you have system shortages right out the gate because they just they can't get the materials to build them fast enough.
Right.
Well, let's dive into that topic a little bit more at hand. Yes, we're going to geek out and nerd out, so turn it if you don't like talking about video games. But we hope you do out there, because this is this week's multimedia segment.
Multimedia.
Multimedia.
Haven't you heard? That's right, guys. Multimedia. We're talking about the latest console wars. Obviously.
I mean, this is the year.
This is it. They're back again every year on a 6 or 7 year cycle.
Vividly remember me and you getting the PS4, pre-ordering, standing in line at GameStop, and I'm just it just feels like that was just a year or two ago.
It doesn't feel like a long time ago. But that was 2013. I think was the last time the last gen started.
I think you're right.
I think that was when it came out, holidays of 2013.
And I mean, that is a very good lifetime for a console, especially with nowadays when technology advances so rapidly.
Yeah.
But still, it just feels like it was just the other day.
Yeah. So the console specs are out for both the Xbox Series X and the PS5.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a lot has been thrown around in the gaming world as to which is better. People saying,
PC. Nah.
Yeah, well, they'll always be arguing that. But you obviously have your Xbox Series X performing better in terms of just sheer the teraflops And then you've also got the PS5 coming just under that.
Apple Arcade. That's
But-
all you
Yes.
need.
That's true. That's all you
Yes,
need.
on your Apple TV device.
I mean, I'm
Yes.
telling you, man. Everybody will be clamoring for that.
Yeah.
I-
Who needs PlayStation or Xbox?
I know.
You know, it's sad when they will come out on stage and admit, though, that more people play the Apple Arcade
Oh,
than do consoles. It
Yeah.
just makes sense.
mobile gaming is
It's huge.
It's just one of those things you can fiddle with for a few minutes, and of all ages, people can just to pass the time and without
while
you
you're
know,
pooping. I mean, God,
Yeah.
Keith
you
was
gotta
doing a
have
lot
some
of that
games to
last
play
week.
while you're pooping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your?
I feel lost.
What's your poop game?
Poop game?
I don't
I
have
don't-
a poop
I
game.
tend to
You don't have a
read.
poop game
I
to
tend to
play?
read actually.
What? Oh, you read?
I watch
Yeah.
YouTube.
I do watch things.
I watch YouTube.
I'll watch videos or read every now and then. I'll play. Here's the thing. Here's my poop games. Any of those stupid ads that are on Facebook where they show the people like that are so
Candy Crush?
No,
Oh.
never Candy Crush.
That's
I
a-
refuse.
I
No.
refuse to.
But when
used to
you
play
if you ever get
Farmville.
on Facebook, they'll have random like just flash games where it constantly shows whoever's playing it is failing. And it's on the simplest task, and you get it's meant to make you mad because it's like, that's so easy. Why are you so stupid? I'm going to download this game and do it. And I never do it if I'm scrolling Facebook because I'm like, yeah, I know that's what they want. But when I'm using the bathroom, I'm like,
All right,
no,
I'll
let's
do
do
it. I'll do it.
and then I'll play it while I'm in the bathroom and never play it again because it's so easy. I'm like, yeah, there we go. I satisfied that itch. I solved the problem that person on Facebook couldn't.
Wow.
But yeah, those ads
and
Words
then,
with friends
and
or
then you
something.
you realize you get to a point where you can't pass it, and everybody's like, "Dude, this guy's an idiot."
never got to that point. Well, no, people can't see you play. It's
well,
just they
you think
they
Yeah.
actually designed the ad to.
to make it
Right.
look like
They're
yeah.
like, oh, you bet you can't get past this part.
bet
and the
you
guy's
can't,
like
yeah.
dropping the ball like.
You're
I
just like,
can't
I can
do
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
I can do it while I'm pooping. I don't even
All right.
need it.
And so, all right, let's talk about the first thing. Obviously, since the last gen of consoles,
Mm-hmm.
the fact is both consoles are very PC based.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Everything's kind of trending in that, you know.
And then you have Switch.
true.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
Nintendo's always just out there doing their own thing, but
and
more
they're-
power
and
to
they're
them.
They're
Yeah.
smart
Yeah.
for it.
Hey, I
because-
love the Switch. I do. So I mean, more
All right,
power to
well,
them.
and here's a little bit of what we were talking about when we were over at my neighbor Brian's, and
That's where all the real magic happens.
Yeah, with that notepad.
Yeah.
We write stuff
He's got
down on
a-
that notepad.
he's got a new notepad.
Brian's taking notes on all the terrible things we do, so that
He's coming up with idea after idea for
Yeah.
the show,
yeah.
and we got to
Hell,
think
he's gonna
Brian.
write the whole show pretty soon.
He's going to be our producer.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, he's going to write the words.
Does that
we
mean he's
speak.
going to pay us?
I got a Switch, by the way.
You
Oh,
did get
did
a
you?
Switch.
I haven't given it. I haven't opened it yet.
Oh.
I'm giving it to Sawyer next week on
He ain't
spring
watching
break.
this right now, is
No,
he?
he's not watching this.
Okay.
It's
I'm
gonna.
telling
It's
you, man.
ours.
Okay.
Believe me.
You have to get Breath of the
It's
Wild.
ours. but I'm presenting it to
Super
us
Mario
on
Odyssey
spring
and-
break.
Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild.
I know. It came with Mario Kart.
Well, that's a good one. No, it's
but
a good one.
I'm gonna have to buy some
You can
other
play.
ones.
You can play some of them online. I'll play.
Yeah,
I'll play
but
Mario
it's
Kart
the
online
new
with
Switch. It's the updated one.
you. Yeah.
So
Oh, it's you're talking about the one that's all one unit.
no. We didn't get the
Oh.
Switch Lite. It's
Oh,
the big
okay.
one, but it's
Okay.
got the new chip in it.
Yeah,
it's got
that
the
they
new
ha-
Tegra chip in it.
They do have a
Oh,
newer.
They
like,
got a newer
It's like the
version.
Tegra 1 Plus or something like that.
Oh,
That's in
okay.
it.
Well, that's weird.
I
So
don't know.
I didn't know they updated it.
It was
like
just
that.
like
Yeah, they updated
PlayStation 4 to PS4 Pro.
Well, yeah, but
Xbox,
I didn't. I never even heard of it. I didn't know
Yeah.
it was out.
Well, I mean, it's not. It wasn't
like a
as big.
huge
It's not as big a
refresh?
leap.
No,
as,
it wasn't like that. It's
Yeah.
just they just started shipping the new one and quit shipping the old one. That's
Gotcha.
it.
Yeah.
So then,
Looks the same.
here's the thing. So we know, Nintendo does its own thing, and
They do.
rightfully so. Because here's the thing: they know they have the first party games that can support it, that ultimately are what people will buy a Switch
And there's
or
some.
a
Yeah.
Nintendo.
And well, that's the difference.
hardware for.
with the Switch and with past Nintendo is that the Mario, Zelda, they've made a comeback and actually have really good titles, whereas they were middling a little bit in
With
the
the Wii
past.
U?
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question
Yeah.
is with the
hold
Xbox
their
Series
value,
X
too. They do.
and PS5, with the specs being the same, we were already talking about how the hard
Yeah.
drive being a specific type of hard
Relatively
drive
close.
it in the PS5 is supposed to be why Mark Cerny, the lead, system architect on PS5,
Right.
has come out and stated that you can't talk about teraflops because
Yeah.
it really doesn't just, 'cause I'm a Sony fanboy.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Have been since the original PlayStation.
I've bounced back and forth.
Yeah,
I've
you
never
actually
been a
have
Sony.
owned most of the
He's got
consoles.
everything.
Yeah,
I do.
You've got everything.
right
He
now,
has
I do. I have
everything.
all of them.
So, with that being said, excuse me, and all of the console specs being out there now, do you all know what console you're going with? Are you
PlayStation.
sticking? You're sticking with PS?
I'll
PS5?
stick with. Here's the thing. I never owned the PS2. I owned the original Xbox, and I absolutely loved it. And I stuck with Xbox with the 360 and did not regret it. Eventually, when the PlayStation got cheaper, I did buy a PS3 and fell in love with that. And then when it came to Xbox One or PlayStation, I stuck with PlayStation for the PS4. And I eventually did get the Xbox One, but I still prefer the PS4. And I think, even though originally I was the Xbox guy, the PS3 and the PS4 won me over, and I'm going to stick with the PS5.
Well, and I think a lot of that comes
At least
down
first
to,
time thing. I'm not
again-
saying I won't ever buy a Series X because I'm a Halo fan.
Yeah.
But
and we know the next Halo.
I
does
know
look
out
amazing.
the gate though it'll be PS5.
Well, and part of what we were talking about, and even just now with Nintendo, with its first party titles, it's like that's where I feel like Sony has the leg up with Xbox.
Yeah.
And I do believe that Xbox has made an advance in terms of the studios that they've bought, and I think they've been keeping some things under wraps. Hopefully, I really think it comes down to when Xbox One came out and PS4 took a huge leap ahead, and there was a lot of muddled messaging with Microsoft that they've since fixed, but they still haven't been able to one up Sony. And I really do think, and I still think Sony's learned their lessons 2 generations back with the PS3.
Yeah.
I think that was what they learned,
Yeah.
and then of course
That
Xbox
was,
and Microsoft has learned it with this generation.
Yeah.
But I really do think that what it comes down to, unless Xbox or Microsoft can come out and show me that they're going to have a stellar lineup at the very beginning of this console's life cycle, I just don't know if it's going to be the staying power that, because if they're at the same price, you already have seen not only the dominance of Sony in the last 2 generations, because even with the PS3 lagging way behind early on, it came up to meet the same success that Xbox did. And a lot of that is to do to foreign markets and the fact that Sony has been able to pull ahead in many foreign markets.
They've always, for the most part, been pretty neck and neck. I mean, the PS2 obviously was clear winner. Then it was 360 for a while until, like you said, the PS3 caught up. It's, I would say, definitely more PS4 this cycle. But for the most part,
absolutely.
the
Xbox
PS4
One, I think,
was
is $30
$100 cheaper
Yeah.
when it first came out, and it had way more exclusives
Yes.
when it first came out. And that's
But
why
they've
I
had
think
nothing in the last.
No,
I can't even remember the last Xbox game like exclusive that.
Oh no!
I mean, Gears
that's what I'm
5
saying.
recently.
That's, PS4 had the leg up from the get-go
Yes.
because of the price and the exclusivity, and I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with the 5. We've already seen rumors that the price point may be close to the $400 range, and if that is,
which is pretty
that's going to be
spectacular.
probably $100 to $200 cheaper than the Xbox Series X.
I think Microsoft is focusing heavily on trying to capture both like console gamers and that PC market,
Yes.
and I think that's kind of a mistake because they don't really. I mean, I love the cross-play ability that you could get on Xbox and play online with other Xbox players and PC players. That's cool. But at the same time, the experience on a console and the experience on the PC are 2 different things.
Well,
I think PC gamers aren't going to give up their PC for the Xbox.
They're not, but I think that's where the consoles are learning from. But again, I think that, I do think you're right. I don't think they're missing out on it. If Microsoft is willing to take a smaller slice of the console pie, in terms of saying, hey, we're going to have this kind of, joined and very, connected universe of console and PC, I think that would be a different way to take on, okay, we have a little bit of a failure in terms of, a penetration rate of consoles in your household.
Yeah.
But when you add up PC gaming and Xbox gaming together and they share the same libraries, share the same experience, then you're going to have a heck of a lot more. And I think if they focus on that in a creative way, like they've tried to do on the back end with the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X, and I think that's what they have tried to do, then I really do see that as a winning formula for them. I don't think it to me, that's what they're trying to, I guess, they're still trying to cater to that console base and those Xbox fans, but I think they're still trying to include in that, hey, if you are a PC gamer, you're not left out in the dust either, and we kind of mix those communities. Whereas Sony, it's strictly, you've got to have that Sony-branded network and that Sony-branded, idea and mentality of joining in that group and that community. But at the same time, where they still, I think, lead Xbox is we've seen on multiple generations now of consoles, they've had stellar first-party titles. And they've continued to come out with first-party titles that are console sellers. We still have Ghost of Satsuma, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
That's coming out this summer.
Yeah.
You have the likes of The Last of Us 2 coming out. Still,
How about that being a launch title for PS5?
Yeah.
see, that's crazy to me because that was supposed to be PS4 Pro
Yeah.
or PS4, and I think they'll probably do something like what MGS5 did.
Where it's
They'll
on
launch
both.
on both,
Both
but
systems,
obviously
yeah.
the
Yeah,
premier,
the other one. Yeah.
the premium format will be on PS5.
Yeah.
But again, it's like you have these impressive first-party titles.
Yeah.
They have some misses every once in a while, but then you for the most part, you have your Spider-Man, you have God of War, you have, Dreams even from
Oh, yeah.
Media Molecule.
that's been
I think that's
huge.
Media Molecule.
Yeah, it's
but
been
I mean,
a big one.
it's you have all of these different interesting new ways of approaching exclusive games, and Sony's the only platform. And I think that's been their bread and butter, and I think as long as they don't get that big head about themselves, because they don't have that PC culture to integrate with as tightly as Microsoft does, they have to depend on that.
I mean, besides the exclusive titles, though, the PS4 won a lot out over the Xbox because it was made for gamers.
Yeah.
The Xbox was trying to be more of a media center, which it has always tried to do. It had less sharing capabilities, more complicated user interface and OS.
Truth be told, that's all I use my Xbox for is a media center.
Yeah, and it used to be your PS3 was kind of like your go-to because it did everything. It was like the Swiss Army knife of consoles.
Now the Xbox,
but the
One
Xbox
is this generation.
doing that.
It is. But the PlayStation 4 was catered to gamers. That's one of the things that kept the specs a little bit lower and kept the price a little bit lower too, though, because it was you don't need all the media center crap. You want a gaming console. It's what we're giving you. And I think with the PS5, it kind of sounds like yes, you're losing 2 teraflops. You're losing some of those media center aspects to it, but you're gaining instant load times. That's what gamers want. You're gaining a more professional competitive gaming controller. That's what gamers want. You're gaining the titles. That's what gamers want. Even the CPU and GPU of the unit, it has less compute units and that translates to less teraflops.
Yeah.
But Sony's betting on the game developers. It's a lot easier to build a game for 32 compute units than 52.
Yeah.
So there's more raw power there than spreading it out. Most the article I was reading today was saying that most video games aren't made for multi-threading. They're not. They're made for the single core performance. Sony's going to beat Xbox out in single core performance every step of the way.
And that's what's interesting too in terms of when you compare the two. It's like Microsoft, I think, has been. They make Windows. It's like the obviously the easily the biggest selling software in computer history,
right?
And obviously the foundation of most computers out there,
right?
Yet at the same time, it's like you have someone like Mark Cerny who has been through, with him leading the system architecture on the PS4, and then him having been a game developer and for notable titles, in Sony's history. It's like, I think when you have someone like that who has been behind the scenes, who knows what it's like to be a developer,
right,
who goes to them and not only knows what it is the developer wants, but then knows the science of how to engineer and build that to their preference. That's the key in which I'm like, okay, for him, I think he's looking at it purely as a one-on-one with all of their first-party developers and third-party developers and saying, how can we give you the best tool set? And where can we not cut corners, but save such that we can cut the price and get into households, but still give almost if equal, if not better, performance than our competitor.
Yeah, they learned a big lesson from the PS3.
Oh,
the
huge.
PS3 had that cell shader engine and all that in it, the cell engine. It was this new thing. They were going to power every supercomputer in the world with this thing, and
it was extremely proprietary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And developers, it was a nightmare for them to develop games for it. There's
even in that presser that they just had, he was talking about how they were, the whole idea and agenda behind each console generation was to cut down development time by or at least the learning, the curve of the development time by months. And they said for the PS3, it was like 6 to 12 months before you could even understand how to use it.
Yeah.
They said with the PS4, they got it down to 3 months. They said this one is 0 to 1 month.
Right, because it's a PC.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The closer they can get it to a PC, the better, the quicker development's going to be.
And I think
that's what both, Microsoft and Sony
both
are both
aiming
doing.
for.
They
both
did it with
trying
the
to-
last generation. They're doing it with this
They're
one.
trying to make it as close to PC as possible because it's easier to develop for.
And that's really why I think it comes down to games. Because at the end of the day, teraflops or not,
The specs are going to be so close.
they're
Yeah.
so close, you're not going to see a difference in that performance. You're going to see it in the load times and, again, ultimately in what game you're playing.
Right.
And so that's really what it comes down to is what are you going to give me out of the gate that makes, whets my appetite for what else is down the road.
Yeah.
And
now, I do know that Microsoft has talked about with this next console, they're going to the streaming games like Stadia, Google's thing. They're
they've
going to have a
talked about doing
service
that.
that's like that. And I don't know if Sony's got anything like that in
Well,
its pocket.
they've got PlayStation Now.
Yeah, that's garbage.
But it's their streaming service.
Oh, I understand.
And so
yeah.
I
mean,
think,
Xbox has Game Pass, which has been hugely successful for them so far.
Yep. But a lot of that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong on Game Pass, you actually can download the game, right? And you have it for as long as you subscribe to Game Pass, right?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah,
It's not like
that's
you're
why
streaming
it's
a game.
full stream.
Yeah.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
PlayStation Now is like a rental service.
You're streaming the game,
And you're streaming the
but
game.
it doesn't. Yeah, like you said, it's garbage. The Game Pass works because you actually get to download the game,
And you get to keep it for as long as it's
As long as
available
you
on
pay
Game
your
Pass and
monthly
you pay the
subscription.
monthly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a hyped up version of PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
Right.
Or games with
Yeah.
gold.
That brings
Or
you to
games with
another
gold.
point, though. The Xbox is going to be fully backwards compatible all the way to the very
True.
first Xbox.
Yes.
The PS4 is a disappointment in that regard or the PS5. It's
Yeah.
only going to go back to the PS4. You're not
Yes.
going to be able to play 2 and 3 games
Which I'm
on
still
it.
And again-
thankful for, though.
And again,
that at least
that's a knock though on Sony because of what they created with the PS2 and PS3.
Yeah.
Is there two different types
Well,
of builds.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, you can't have it. It's harder to emulate that system.
That's why the
architecture.
PS3, cost so much when they tried to, because they had to have both the hardware for the PS2 and the PS3 in one console to play both, and that's why they ended up scrapping backwards compatibility for future PS3 consoles.
Yeah.
Xbox, I could play. You can't stick. You can. It downloads the game. You could stick in your original Xbox disc into the Xbox One and down as long as they have that game available and download. And I play.
Now here that ticks me off.
Yeah.
That ticks me off because Sony could do the same exact thing.
But here's the thing.
They offer all of those original high.
It's not necessarily reading the disc. It just acknowledges you
own
own
it.
it. So then it downloads from the because I've done it with Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh,
I've
man.
downloaded
That's
that
cool.
original Xbox games from Xbox's
But
store
that's
because
because
I
you
you
don't
don't
own
have to buy it again.
I own the
Yeah, that's
original
great.
disc and it just downloads it.
And I talked about that years ago. And
now
and
you still have
Sony
to have
could
the
do
disc in the console for it to play. It won't play. You can't
That's
just play.
fine.
Play
Because-
the game like after you download
But that's
it.
fine. Sony has the availability, and they have
They
all of
could,
those
yeah.
old original titles
with
in
the
the cloud.
PlayStation Now, though, they do have PS3 titles that you can play on your PS4.
Well, yeah,
They do that, but
Yeah.
it's but it's
crap.
But
yeah,
still, you
it's
have to
crap.
pay
It's
and
crap.
it streams. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're still streaming.
I would
it.
much
paying for
prefer
the
like
monthly
with the
payment.
Xbox if I have like an old Metal Gear Solid 2. If I put that disc in the PS4,
You can download that game.
it can recognize it and download it from the PlayStation Store. But I think the problem with that is they have to be able to emulate a PS2,
Yeah.
and that's the technology that they're.
But here's the thing: if they can have the availability of, and I understand emulating it and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is there's original PlayStation titles. I mean, they've sold millions of copies of Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
They're about to sell 10,000 more
With the
or,
remake,
You know,
yeah.
thousands of more with the remake. The fact of the matter is, I should not have to buy the original PS1 game 8 different times.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
the original PS1 version. I should be able to stick it into my PS4 because it is available as a PlayStation Classic.
you can
on
stick
the
it into your
PlayStation.
PS3. That'll work.
You can. That's true. PlayStation 1 games will work in your PS3, but even still, PS2 games, all of those that are still available
Yeah.
in the PlayStation Store, they should be available for download if you stick in the disc.
I agree.
That's bullcrap.
I
But
agree.
and I do think that Sony has a lot of learning in that regard. I think they're trying to make up some missed promises with the PS5 and it being backwards compatible now that it is so much more PC based. I think they can do it. Yet at the same time, it's still one of those things where it's like you talk about such a huge and expansive catalog.
Oh, yeah.
Sony has a huge expansive catalog. So to see them take a step back and to still not be able to do what Xbox did with Xbox One,
Yeah.
which is make every one of their consoles backwards compatible. I mean, that's just fantastic on their part. And they've really
Yeah.
done the fan service in that regard. But
Well, that's
I'm
because
still
their past games are the only thing worth playing. They don't have current games worth.
That's true. Maybe
Everything-
Sony's banking on the hardware being so easy to develop. We're going to develop thousands of new
Emulators.
titles that we're not going to have. Our players aren't going to want to play 10-year-old games.
You're not
They're
going to be
gonna
able
wanna play the new ones.
Forget nostalgia.
It's
I
like
don't
all
know.
the Xbox games I want to play are the ones that came out on Xbox or 360. There hasn't been.
That's
There's
right.
only been a handful on the Xbox
has
One
been,
worth playing.
Sony has been releasing a little bit of information every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But they've still been pretty secretive
Yeah.
with the design and whether there's
See,
going to be a
and
pro
it's funny
model.
'cause-
So I'm wondering if maybe maybe we shouldn't worry about backwards compatibility. We might get it.
True, and I've been listening to some of the pundits and IGN and whatnot, and they've
Yeah.
all talked about how this is Sony's making a mistake. Xbox has been
That
getting
might be
a
what they
messaging
want us
thing,
to think.
and that's the thing. I'm like, no, they're not. I mean, for one, we're in the middle of Corona.
Yeah,
Nobody saw
yeah.
that coming. But regardless, it's like they have plenty of time on their hands.
Yes, they
Even
do.
if you want to talk about they're like, but it's releasing this holiday. We're months away. And all you got to do is come out with a great sizzle trailer or teaser reel in August, and that's really late in the year, and that's all you need months out from the actual premiere of the product, and people are going to be standing in line cashing in their pre-orders.
Yep.
It's like, trust me, they're waiting, I think, right now to let Microsoft make their
They
play.
want them to shoot first.
They want them to shoot first
Yeah.
because PS4, Sony shot first last time, and they won, and they took that gamble. But they had some ground to make up with PS3's failure, and they did it. They did everything right in terms of marketing, and Xbox had everything to do with messing it up, and they did.
Well, Xbox had to backtrack because originally, you had to have a constant internet connection.
Yep.
And
Oh,
you
there
had
were
to have-
tons
Oh,
of
yeah.
blunders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't rent or you couldn't borrow a game. You had to because of that internet connection.
Yes.
And,
And I
and
mean,
then of course the famous Don Matrick, quote of if you don't want this system, we have a great system and a great product with Xbox 360.
Yeah.
It's like, so you're not wanting people
Wow.
to buy
Yeah.
the Xbox. It
Yeah.
was just terrible. But no, we'll see. Obviously, plenty of time
Plenty.
It'll be
for the console
interesting.
wars this year. We'll see. It'll get interesting. But guys, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast.
Yeah.
As
I think so.
always, you can email us.
Where?
I'll tell you where. It's right there at the bottom of your screen. Right there.
Right
tickle,
there?
Tickle, tickle.
Oh, you on your screen?
You can't touch it.
It's
It's
at the
got-
bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
So I thought
Now
you
it's
meant
at the
my
bottom of
screen.
your screen.
Whose screen? My screen?
That's right.
This screen right
Don't
here?
touch it. It's got Corona.
Ooh.
I just touched it.
Oh,
no.
you didn't
Touch it
touch it.
again.
You didn't touch it.
I'm not touching
Oh,
it.
you're in it. Oh.
I got the Corona.
I'm gonna give it pink eye.
Oh,
man.
no, now it's on your screen.
Oh,
you
no.
You can just wink at it and give it pink eye. That's right. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com, right there at the bottom of your screen. As always, check out our website at redmoonproductions.com.
Yes.
Have our latest reviews on there. You can join us on all of our social networks. Search for Red Moon Productions. You got Facebook, your Instagrams, your Twitters.
Yes.
Check us out
The tweeters.
on all of those.
And thank you for all the comments. We love them. We enjoy
do.
them.
We enjoy
Keep
them.
commenting.
Yes.
I'm
Keep
sorry,
even
send
after
us
we're done.
emails.
Keep commenting.
Comment, email us. We just like to be given attention. I mean, we're lonely during the quarantine, so just keep
That's
messaging us.
Yeah, we love it. We need all of the love we can get from our social distancing. So just keep sharing it. The love. All right, guys. I think that's
the love.
The low.
I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. As always, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
so until next time, we
We
will
will
see
see
you
you-
at the movie.
No, we won't.
Oh, we won't. That's right. Sorry.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.